Today is the day that the old goes away. Today is the right time. Make a new start, straight from the heart. Let it be all that you need. Make a new start, straight from the heart.
Right. Well, this little girl in the commercial was trying so hard to play out her visions of grandeur, practicing archery and doing her best to hit that tennis ball, wanting so badly to be like her heroes, Joan of Arc and Billie Jean King. By the way, did you know that Michael Jackson wrote that song about Billie Jean King? True lie. Anyway, but her poor vision was obviously holding her back. And really, if her mom hadn't recognized the problem and got this little girl's vision corrected, it would have been very difficult for her daughter to grow up and accomplish what her little heart desired. And I believe this cute little commercial is a great metaphor for the importance of clear vision. Without a clear vision, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to get where you're going. Now, that's true whether or not you're stumbling in the dark in a room trying to find a light switch. It's true if you're stumbling through life without a vision for where you want to be 20 years from now, 30 years now. It's true if you're a business owner and you really don't have a clear vision for where it is that you want to take your company. And it's also true when it comes to the church. If a church lacks clarity of vision and mission, they're going to find themselves very ineffective in making an eternal impact on our community. In the absence, in fact, of a clear vision, there will be an absence of people who will get behind that vision and make it a reality. Yogi Berra, who coined the phrase, "It ain't over till it's over," also said that if you don't know where you're going, you might not get there, which is very obvious. It's very true. But as much as it's obvious, and I believe that it's true that we should have a clear vision, it's really only been in the last few months that I've actually been intentional in communicating the vision of Old Town Church to all of you. And the reason for that is really because up to that point, we didn't quite know what our vision was. Some of you might not know this, but Old Town Church, as it exists right now, is only a little more than a year and a half old. We're still a relatively young church, and we've experienced some significant growth pains. And I'd like to take some time today to share a little bit of our church's history with you, because I think that it'll help you understand how it is that we kind of became a ship without a compass. So I'll try to be brief about this, but we originally were planted 8 years ago over on Main Street, where now they have quinceañeras in that place. I forget what they call it right now, but it was over on 2020 Main. We were a satellite campus of Sunrise Church in Hillsboro. Pastor James Gleason really felt, he had a heart for this community and really felt that Sunrise could make a difference here. And so, beginning on September 11th, 2011, we gathered on 2020 Main Street as Sunrise Forest Grove under the leadership of Pastor Greg Scandrett, who served as our campus. He was a very dear friend and spiritual father. Unfortunately, he has passed away. And I was his little apprentice. And at that time, we were a multi-site video venue where we pumped in a pre-recorded sermon from Pastor James that we showed on Sunday mornings. We very quickly learned that that didn't quite work in this culture and context. And so Pastor James decided to go ahead and let Pastor Greg do all of the preaching. And so he did. He did all the preaching, and I kind of did everything else. It was my job to lead worship along with Pastor Zach and I was the youth guy, and it was my responsibility to go out and try to seek opportunities to serve in our community. Me and Charlene were very active in trying to connect with the people who considered Sunrise Forest Grove their home and meet the needs of our growing community. And we really did grow incredibly fast. After just 7 months over there on 2020 Main, we had to leave. We had to find a bigger space to meet in. So we met over in what was formerly the Tuppers building on the smaller section of that, where we met on Easter and had to immediately go to two services to facilitate the growth. 8 months later, we finished renovations on what is now Black Dog, but we finished renovations on that place, and we met in there, and we just continued to grow. Well, after just 1 year, about a year and a month, we had another very significant change and challenge in front of us as Pastor Greg felt like it was time for him to part ways with Sunrise. And I'll tell you what, that man left some incredibly big shoes to fill. And we were left with this question of who would step in and take his place. Now, they were equipping me and training me to eventually take on that responsibility as campus pastor, but none of us had anticipated that it would be so soon. And I was the first to express that I didn't feel capable of doing that job. But to make a very long story short, after lots of prayer, after lots of good counsel from trusted friends and leaders, including Pastor James, I stepped into that role. Pastor James saw something in me that I surely did not see at all. And I became the campus pastor of Sunrise Forest Grove. And to say that it was challenging is an understatement. Some of you were with us in that transition. And I thank the Most High God that we lost all the recordings of those first 7 months of messages. They were ghastly. And I feel like I studied so hard and the truth was in there, but really poor execution. It's really embarrassing. But anyway, while it was challenging, I had tremendous support from Pastor James. He mentored me. He provided all the leadership training for our Sunrise Forest Grove staff at that time. The Hillsborough campus took care of all of the human resources stuff and payroll, finances. And Pastor James planned all of our messages. I didn't have to plan messages. He just said, you're preaching on this topic, flesh it out, but this is what you're preaching on. All right, well, so my job was easy. And on top of that, Pastor James did all of the setting of direction for Sunrise Church. Pastor James was the one who did all of the course correcting as we navigated the vision of Sunrise Church. So again, my job was made easier because of the leadership and the support that I had from James. Well, one day all of that changed. And it changed because of I really believe it's an act of God, a very miraculous act of God that he performed in the hearts of the leadership of First Baptist Church, which gathered here in this place since the 40s. And what happened was we had been praying that God would provide us with another facility in which to grow. We had anticipated that we were going to continue to see people come through our doors. We had to look forward, and that required that we get another building in our line of sights. But man, we prayed and prayed, and nothing came to fruition until God answered our prayers through the leadership of First Baptist Church. One day, Pastor Mark Rubio came to me and said, Rude, the elders of First Baptist, we recognize that you guys need space. We have it, and we want to give it to you for free. For free. It's unheard of. Now, I want to read you something from the News Times regarding this transaction, this transition. Listen to this. First Baptist leaders recently decided to give their church away to Sunrise, asking nothing in return. It's an action that mirrors their Christian faith in a God who they say loves and gives the same way. No strings attached. Man, that is true. I love that. It was like God was tapping us on the shoulder and pointing out the obvious, said Steve Daner, a First Baptist leader who'd been here since 1992. Sunrise needs the space, and we've got it. and they gave it to us. And the idea was that we would merge together, this family of Sunrise Forest Grove and the family of First Baptist coming together and utilizing this facility to accomplish the common goal that we had to announce this good news of Jesus Christ to this community, as well as make disciples. And that became a reality on December 18th, 2016, when we gathered here for the first time as Old Town Church. And on the heels of that decision of us coming together was yet another very critical, very important decision where Pastor James and I had both decided that Sunrise Forest Grove, our church, had finally grown to the degree that we needed to be set free to go and make our own decisions based on what the Holy Spirit is telling and communicating to us as God's unique expression of his church here in Forest Grove. And so, appropriately, on Father's Day, Pastor James, who I consider another spiritual father, he came here and he announced to all of us that it was time for us to move on and move out. And we were going to be launched out at that time as Old Town Church, a completely independent church from Sunrise. Pastor James would no longer be our lead pastor, and all the many ways that he and Sunrise provided myself and my staff with leadership and guidance and support, all of those things were carefully and strategically pulled back from us. Not in a mean way, but as a way to help us learn how to stand on our own 2 feet. And now all the responsibility for providing spiritual direction for our church was now resting on our shoulders. And it felt very much like that moment when I decided to move out of my parents' house at 17. That was crazy. I mean, my mom spoiled me, man. My mom was still washing my clothes when I was 17. I'd come home, my mom made my bed. My mom made me dinner. She spoiled me. I'm a mama's boy. But man, when I got out in the real world and realized that, well, who's going to make me breakfast? How do you make a bed? You should see I still don't know how to make a bed really that well. Anyway, to be honest, I don't even I remember when I had to call you because I didn't know how to turn on the dishwashing machine? Good thing I was going to squirt like the stuff in there. Anyway, the blue stuff, the soap in the machine. That's, again, man, reality hit me square in the face. Like, boy, you're in trouble. So it kind of felt like that. It's this experience, a huge burden of responsibility that I'd never known before. And as I was also filled with a lot of questions and self-doubt about who I was now as a leader, without Pastor James there to help me make important decisions, to provide counsel, and to help guide and navigate our church. Remember, up to that point, the vision and the mission of our church was driven by Pastor James, according to how he felt that the Lord was leading him and our Sunrise family. And so in a way, it was like James was kind of the compass who ensured that we were headed in the right direction. And now that compass was gone, which made many of you here in this place who've been along on this journey with us feel like we lacked a sense of direction and vision. And that's because we kind of did. As we moved from Sunrise Forest Grove and became Old Town Church, we experienced a very significant identity crisis that we only recently have overcome. People wondering, are we still Sunrise? I see a little sunburst on some things, but not on other things. And is the vision of Sunrise still our vision? Great questions. And the conclusion that my staff and I have finally come to, after much prayer, after much deliberation, discussion, and sometimes very healthy debate? The answer is no. We're Old Town Church. So over the course of about 8 months, our staff met every Wednesday working through a book called Church Unique by a man by the name of Will Mancini. This is a wonderful, wonderful resource for church leaders who are looking to clarify their vision and their mission and their strategy. I want to read you something from the book that is a very good clarifying question. It was kind of something that I'd never considered before because guess what? I never had to. James did all of that. But listen to this. Many leaders articulate an overgeneralized sense of vision. Your unique vision is not glorifying God or making disciples. Why not? Well, because God's glory is the ultimate motive for any church. And discipleship should be every church's Jesus-given mission. So, then, with that said, what then is your church's unique part in the kingdom? Everything about the vision of Sunrise is beautiful and true and biblical. They want to lead people into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. Boom, so do we. They want to make disciples who make disciples. That is the Great Commission, Matthew 28. We should be doing that too. And so should every church in the United States and around the world. See, but if making disciples was a compelling vision, there would be a lot more successful churches. But the sad reality is that churches are having a difficult time getting people to walk through their doors, let alone make disciples who are making disciples and who are intentionally living on mission. Forget about it. A lot of these churches, that is their vision, to make disciples, and they hold fast to Matthew 28 as their marching orders, which, of course, it's the words of Jesus. And in fact, if you don't know Matthew 28, let me read it to you. This is Jesus speaking to his disciples, which includes you and me. But he says, I have been given all authority in heaven and earth. Therefore, go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teach these new disciples to obey all the commands that I've given you. And then be sure of this, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age. Yeah, so make disciples, of course, that's what we should be doing, but what does that mean? How do you go about doing that exactly? Well, those who hold fast again to Matthew 28 and this vision and mission of making disciples, they would say, well, you go and you baptize people in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit like Jesus said. Okay, well, guess what? We've discipled all sorts of people in this place. And I can tell you the names of a number of people who we baptized who now, they went right back to their self-destructive, jacked up ways. I wouldn't call them disciples. Dunking people in water does not necessarily translate them into being a disciple. It just doesn't. You know that. Well, then what you need to be doing is doing as Jesus said and teaching them to obey all that I've commanded you. All right, well, guess what? There's a grip of pastors right now, right now, who are pounding on the pulpit, spitting on the front row right here. All the commands of God from Malachi all the way to, the New Testament. Now, is that making disciples? I'm telling you, if you look at the stats, and again, how many churches are struggling to keep their doors open, I am not convinced that pounding the pulpit about the commands of God is translating to discipleship. Okay, but here, with all that said, it's interesting because something has been working here at Old Town Church. The 8 a.m. service, we're like, what's going on? I was shocked. I had to look up, and there was a lot more people. Last service was about this many people. Like, we're growing. What is different? What is happening by accident here in a way? And so that's what our staff had set out to discover as we went through this Church Unique book. Like, what is this? What are we doing? Can we quantify it? Can we replicate it? Can we put our finger on it? What are we doing that's different? And it was a kind of horrible but good process, grueling but good. Eating vegetables, it's like it's good for you. Sometimes it's nasty. But this thing of working through what's the difference between a vision and a mission mandate and a kingdom concept, and it was all. I'm glad I'm surrounded by brilliant people who operate in that kind of way. But anyway, as we put words on the board, trying to define what are we doing, what are some of our values, what do we see in terms of actions that we're taking that are translating to you guys showing up here. 4 words. Grace kept showing up. Authenticity kept showing up. Community and service. Let me be brief. Because I'm like, what are those 4 things? Well, grace, if you've been here long enough, you know that I am communicating the grace of God fiercely. And I don't relent. Even in the midst of people saying, people who think, well, you're all about grace and you're not tell people to get right. And let's talk about homosexuality and abortion and Donald Trump and all that stuff. And I'm like, man, what I'm told in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 18 and 19 is that we are to be conveying to this world that God is no longer holding their sins against them. So let's stop with all the finger pointing. And so I'm relentless. And to the degree that I know people say, he must be like a universalist or something. Whatever. You can say whatever you want. But the grace of God is something that I'm going to talk about here in the coming weeks. But it's something that at the very core of my being, I live and breathe that. My own personal mission in this life, okay, like it's going to inform what we do at Old Town, but is to set people free from rules-based religion. Like, no, it doesn't work. Setting them free from that and inviting them into an actual life-changing relationship with Jesus Christ. So that's what I'm going to do, and that's what grace kept coming up on the thing. Like, I can't get away from that because I'm going to keep preaching that. All right. Authenticity. You're going to see that up here. Anybody who comes up here and speaks, they got to be authentic. Don't come up here trying to act like you got all your stuff together. Forget about it. Raw, very real talk about the struggles that I face trying to live out what I'm teaching you. I struggle just as much as you do to be who it is that Christ has called me to be. You need to see that. Well, some people don't like that. They've told me, why do you always share that stuff? Why don't you tell us when you're winning? Man, I'll tell you when I'm winning. I do that too. But I'm going to tell you when I am failing to live up to my own convictions. That's real. That's authenticity. And I want all of us to be operating in that. Don't front. Take off your mask. Come here like you are. Wow. So authenticity is huge, right? And you feel that. So the grace message and that authenticity, I hear all the time people go, this is different. Community. Man, you guys know it. If I could meet with every single one of you, you guys know that. I try to meet with everybody, and I run myself ragged trying to do that. But it's because I love people. I want to be around you. And many folks on my staff are wired that way. Like, Pastor Jason, man, forget about it. Him and Violet, that's why he's going to be preaching on community in a few weeks, because he lives and breathes that. Community is huge, and we want you to be in authentic community and then service. Pastor Brian Schimmel, man, that guy, Annika, others like him who are serving, whether it's the shelter when it's there, or the summer food program, or our clothing closet, or all the many ways that we're serving our community. Service is what has earned us the respect of the leaders in our community. Guarantee, man, you talk to any of them, we're actually a church that's making a difference. Those 4 things, I believe, are what has made us attractive. And it's not us. It's the good news that we're trying to declare. Make no mistake. It's not me. The gospel message is attractive. That's why everybody want to hang around with Jesus, because it was grace and authenticity and love to the degree that it attracts people. So what we had to do as a staff was now try to take those 4 words and put them into a vision statement, which would drive us, it has to be under 10 words, and you go over 10 words, and you got to shave it back. Okay, well, we got it down to 4 words. It was awesome, because it's easier to remember, okay? Now, let me tell you. So what we believe, this 4-word phrase that conveys what we're doing, what we want to be doing now and when Jesus comes back, is to be growing in grace together. We want to be growing in grace together. Now, there's a lot packed into that, and we're going to be unpacking it over the next 4 weeks or so. But really quickly, let me give you a quick breakdown of why I believe this embodies everything that Old Town Church is. Growing. All right, growing. healthy things grow. If you're not healthy, you're not going to grow. If your kid is still, 3'9" and they're 15, all right, well, that's something that's probably not quite right. You did something with their health that you got to take into consideration, right? Growing things, they are healthy things grow, and healthy things multiply. Kids grow up and eventually have kids of their own. Right? They have kids of their own. They are multiplying. They are reproducing. That same reality in the physical is true in the spiritual. As we are growing in our understanding of who God is, growing in our faith, well, then eventually we will multiply. We will invest in the lives of others. We will make disciples, and that makes us then, at that point, a spiritual parent. We've arrived when we begin to replicate and duplicate what Christ has put in us into others. So growing is hugely important. Grace, I already talked about it, so I'm not going to belabor the point, but I'll briefly say this. Titus chapter 2, verses 11 and 12 say that it says, the grace of God teaches us to say no to ungodliness and worldly passions, and teaches us how to live self-controlled, upright lives in this present world. So, you're already blessed, babe. But it's the grace of God that teaches us to say no to ungodliness and teaches us how to be self-controlled. And then the Apostle Paul talks about how it's in Ephesians chapter 3 when he's praying for us. And he's essentially saying, may you experience, he's talking to the church, may you experience the love of Christ, though it's too great to understand fully. Then, as you understand and comprehend that grace, then you will be made complete with all the fullness of life and power that comes from God. So just two quick things there, and there's plenty of other scriptures. But the grace of God teaches you how to act right, how to be righteous, and the grace of God, it provides power that leads to your growth and your ability then to go and replicate what Christ has placed in you in others. And so the way I see it, as long as I keep communicating the grace of God tenaciously, well then, it's going to lead to you and I doing better at living lives of righteousness, fullness, and power. And then lastly, together. John 17, verses 20 through 23. This is his high priestly prayer where he is praying for you, he's praying for me. And I want you to listen to the words that Jesus is saying here. And there's a common theme and a common word that is being stated over and over and over again. Listen to this, John 17, verses 20 through 23. He says, now he's praying for his disciples, and he turns the attention to us. I pray for those who will one day believe in me through their message. I pray for them to all be joined together. There's that word, together. As one, even as you and I, Father, are joined together as one. I pray for them to become one with us so that the world will recognize that you sent me. For the very glory you've given to me, I have given them so that they will be joined together as one and experience the same unity that we enjoy. You live fully in me, and now I live fully in them so that they will experience perfect unity. And the world will be convinced that you have sent me, for they will see that you love each one of them with the same passionate love that you have for me. The prayer of Jesus for us, that we would be united, that we would be together, that we would experience unity and a oneness with each other, and of course with the Father. And that's reflected in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 18, where he's describing for us how the church should operate. He says, and this is not up there, but he makes the whole body, which is you and I, fit together perfectly. As each part does its own special work, it helps the other parts grow so that the whole body is healthy and growing and full of love. Let me begin to wrap this up, okay? You see what he's talking about? This oneness together, this growing in our understanding of God's grace and his love that leads to power. It's all here. And what we've discovered in working through our vision and mission, growing in grace together, is that the growing in grace together does not exactly happen here on a Sunday morning. Now, I think that this is so valuable, and I hope that you keep coming here. I hope that you'll invite your friends. I want you to make this a habit, coming here. But as much as I believe this is valuable, it's a flawed way of doing church, for the lack of a better term. What I mean is that you are supposed to help, let's see, each one doing his own special work, helping the other parts grow so that the whole body is healthy and growing and full of love. So that can't happen here because, I am one guy. And I do not have all the gifts that the Holy Spirit offers to us. Some of you are pastors and teachers and evangelists and prophets. Some of you have the gift of speaking in tongues or the gift of healing or hospitality. I have a couple of those gifts, but I do not have them all. And so you sitting here in rows like this, facing forward, are not operating the way that the scriptures have told us to. See, this is a wonderful celebration. This is a rally, a gathering of the church who is meeting throughout the week in life groups where we believe that true spiritual growth happens. Why do I believe that? Well, because that's where you're in accountable relationships with other members of Christ's body. That's where you're going to express your spiritual gifts. Somebody else is going to express theirs. And coming together, you will help each other grow. But when we're not operating like that, we're kind of limping along. And while this is, I think, a valuable thing to gather like this, it's got to be really flipped the other way around. And so what we're kind of trying to do here is deconstruct what people have come to believe. There's a lot of folks who want me to come to their house and, be with them and pray with them. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm one guy and there's like 1,000 of you. There's not enough of this to go around. There's just not. And the problem for me has been that I want to be there. I want to show up. And then I do, and my staff is going, Rude, why are you doing that? Yep, it's dumb, because there's not enough of me to go around. But people want the guy, or the person they think is the guy, to come to their thing and come pray for them as though I have something special. I'm telling you. Right, babe? I'm not anything special. So we've twisted it up. And the burden that puts on, there's pastors burning out all across the world because people are putting that dumb burden on them to be the guy or the gal. And it's burning them out. And that's why those churches are one by one closing, because they can't do it. The only way the church is going to fully be capable of accomplishing the mission, really this God-given mission to make disciples, is together. Let me read this. This is from Francis Chan. If we're not working together to help the unbelieving world around us become followers of Jesus, then we're missing the point of our salvation. God has placed you in a unique setting alongside a unique group of Christians for the purpose of proclaiming him to the unbelieving world around you. The life of your church is a matter of life and death. Man, I hope you catch that. That is really true. And he says, the mission of your church is too important to leave to Rudy. The moment you begin to believe that your church can be healthy while you sit on the sidelines, you have given up on God's plan of redemption. That is really good. And I probably don't have to tell you this, but we are living in a very interesting time, which is an understatement. Think of how horrible. Just another shooting. Yesterday, a little baby girl shot in the face. This random shooting, another one. And I forget what I read the thing, something like 300 of these mass shootings in just 1 year in the United States. It's just crazy. And just think of where we are politically. We are on the verge, really. And some will roll their eyes, but you can. Of a worldwide financial collapse that will boggle the mind. And it's all biblical, because the Bible says these things must happen. There must be a one world government, and things are going to fall apart. And if you think it's bad now, it's going to get worse, because that is what the Bible says will happen. And here's why I worry about that. Because from what I'm seeing, from my vantage point, a lot of the church, and I'm not just implicating our church family, the church at large, are largely sitting on their hands, doing nothing, just looking really like the rest of the world, not activated in service, not stepping into this God-given mission to go out and make disciples. We've just sat on the sidelines, a lot of folks. And I'm thinking, what happens when things really fall apart? When it really hits the fan and you're made to make a choice between that realm of darkness and light, to buy into this system that is really the beast, it's the Antichrist system. What's going to happen? People are going to fold up with a quickness, with just the slightest persecution. This is important for us to be exercising those gifts now. We're not doing it now. We're not going to do it then. Now is the time. And so it's a simple challenge. Listen, rethink church. Rethink church. Growing in grace together requires you to step out of your comfort zone into not just a life group, but because I think that's incredibly valuable and important, but really into your God-given calling. God has uniquely shaped you with certain gifts and talents that are supposed to be utilized for the benefit of others. Are you using them? That's a question for you to answer. Look, I want to challenge you. As you walk out of here, there's a table set out there, Patty put out there, where you can get some information on life groups. Listen, in last service, it got flooded. Here's what you can do. There's a Connect card in front of you, right? And it's just say, yes, I'm interested in a life group, or yes, I'm interested in leading a life group. Again, you don't have to have a theological degree. Just be willing to open your home and facilitate a conversation. Write that on the card, and then hand it to Patty on your way out, and let her be flooded with a stack of them, because I'm hoping that you won't be one of those who hears this message and said, yeah, that's really nice. I'm not doing that. I ain't got no time for that. I would say that time is of the essence. We don't have time not to do that. So I graciously challenge you to rise up and take responsibility for your part in bringing God's kingdom down here to earth.